My name is Jessica Chace, and I first participated in A Christmas Carol at Artist Exchange in 2013. I was the stage manager for that production. And then in 2015, 2016, and 2017, I directed as well as acted in each production. 2015 was the first time I directed, and I was nervous and excited and really wanted to do the production justice. One of my first decisions was thinking who would play Scrooge, and we were very fortunate to have Bob Colonna play our Ebenezer Scrooge, who is a Rhode Island theater legend. If you don't know who he is, look him up. He's amazing. And this was the first and only time in my current experience of directing the production of placing it in Victorian London. So we did use dialects. That was a unique thing for us. I realize the story is set in England, but I wanted to honor that when we did it. For that vision, we had kind of a family on Christmas Eve celebrating, and then began to tell the story of A Christmas Carol and became the other characters. We also had a lot of ensemble work with various characters playing portraits in Scrooge's home who helped with Marley's haunting. I think it came out really nice, and it was really special to play Winifred next to Bob Colonna. In 2016, we went completely modern, and I think made some creative licenses with a script that did pay off, and I found to be quite rewarding. Tom Chace played Scrooge that year, and our Marley was Jacqueline Marley. I played that, and they definitely had more than a business role. And in this production, they had a child together who was Tim, unbeknownst to Scrooge. And here's the creative license. Bob Cratchit and his family did end up adopting Tim. So it was full of unconventional families. We had Starbucks cups. It was definitely a different feel, but a really special production, and I think helped people understand the story and freshened it up a bit. And then in 2017, we were really trying to explore the relationship of Freddie, or Fred. Again, we had a female playing the niece instead of the nephew. We were really exploring that relationship with Scrooge and how Freddie never gave up on Scrooge. And also, what was Scrooge's life like as a boy? How did he become the person he was? And for that, we had 3 different actors playing Scrooge, and really tried to pronounce the idea of empathy and how being in someone else's shoes, you can realize what other people are experiencing. And I also think it was effective in its own way. The 2016 production definitely connected most to, I think, with what was going on in the world, not just because it was set in the modern times, but during the scene in The Ghost of Christmas Present at Freddie's party, they're playing the yes and no game, and Topper is acting out Scrooge, and I remember that we wrote in someone guessing that he was Donald Trump. So I remember that always getting a really big laugh, and looking back and to where we are today, it was kind of nice to put that in and get a chuckle out of the audience. Describe the visual elements, the set, the costumes, any special effects or staging. What was your reasoning behind what was chosen? So for the first year in 2015, we had a big trunk that had a lot of small costume pieces that the family in the beginning would pick out and use to become their characters. We didn't have much of a backdrop or anything like that. It was pretty much just the Victorian costume that we relied on, and some simple things as well. That year I really liked that the Cratchits, we had hand sewn by our stage manager, Anna Korea. We had hand-sewn poinsettias that they wore as like brooches to celebrate the season. So those little touches, I think, is kind of what set that production apart. In 2016, in the modern version, Adam Ramsey of Advanced Production and Design built a really cool set for us. So it wasn't in the round or three quarters like we typically stage it. We did have more of a proscenium feel to it. And that lent itself to more of the modern feel, doors that we could go in and out of. And we used rolling tables that were, played a lot of different roles and became a lot of different set pieces. So minimal set pieces still as well, but we did have that background. Then for the 2017, it was kind of like set anywhere. So we didn't really say that it was modern day or in the past. There were elements, I suppose, of costuming that could have been from any time period. So we didn't really want to specifically place ourselves anywhere. It was more about the everyday man. But we really only used 6 cubes that lit up. So they would become beautiful pinks or blues or greens, or they would be bright white, or they wouldn't be lit at all. They would become the bed. They would become a desk. They were the gravestone. They were an ice sculpture, igloo. So it was really versatile, using only 6 basically theater blocks, a bench, and I think 2 standing desks. So though that lighting, I think, had some really cool effects. Lanterns, individual candles we used for a lot of the productions to help with reclamation and vigil scenes. And also in that 2017 production, we had a really cool ball or orb that was our Ghost of Christmas Future that moved on a track and lit up. So I think that was a cool approach to it as well. Hopefully the audience felt the same way. What is my favorite scene in A Christmas Carol? That is a really good question. I love so many of the scenes. One of my favorites always is in The Ghost of Christmas Past with Fezziwig's party. I would love to attend a party like that. I would love to know a Mr. and Mrs. Fezziwig. I love the dancing, the singing, the joking, the laughing, the camaraderie, the community. I think that's just a beautiful scene. And Scrooge really starts to realize and see how he wanted to be and then how he didn't become that person. But I think my favorite scene is the reclamation. Just to see this man realize that he has not lived his life the way he wanted to, and that he could lose it all. And he is at the most desperate. And then there's light. Dark to light, and there's joyfulness and festivity, and it's beautiful. It gets me every time. What was my favorite part about directing this production? Well, I loved directing the production, all 3 productions that I performed in, and for various reasons. I was fortunate to perform in all of them and to perform with actors who were 8 years old to 80 years old. And you really can't take that away. They were all memorable in their own way. I don't think I have a favorite. Maybe the modern production, but they each have a special place in my heart and were really fulfilling. And I think each different, which for me was important because you don't want to keep telling the same story. It is the same story, but it's nice to feel like there's always something a little bit different because you never know what you're going to pick up on. What was something that you discovered or found interesting while working with this play? Anything about the story that stuck out to me while working on it that was different than my first impression? I reread A Christmas Carol, the story, every year. Charles Dickens, you want to honor his work. And I feel like I'm always taking away a new quote or a new something. I think, I really want to play up this scene, this line. So I think it's an ongoing challenge as a theater professional, whether it be as an actor or a stage manager or a director, to think, how can I best honor this text and also make it my own? What were some of the challenges that we faced with this production? I would say budget was probably a challenge for each production, just trying to make sure that we are being aware that we don't have a huge budget. We can't necessarily do the spectacle that some theater productions, some theater companies might be able to do, and that's okay. There's actually some creativity in having some smaller limits. because it does stretch you creatively. It does stretch you creatively. My apologies. So budget would be a challenge. And in 2015 and 2016, we performed not only at Theater 82 so in 2015 and 2016, we performed at the Intimate Theater 82 at Artist Exchange, which is quite small. I love that it's small and intimate. But then we had to transition for a weekend at the Park Theater, which is a huge proscenium theater where concerts happen. So how do you transform a production from a tiny space to a large space, thinking of budget? That was definitely a challenge. But again, a fun one, and using simple backdrops and being able to fly things in to suggest a scene was helpful in a place like Park Theater, whereas that was unnecessary in the small space. Any funny behind-the-scenes moment that you recall? So many. I think my favorite thing about backstage is seeing the actors and the stage management team come together. So it's just flowing. You know, you're rehearsing, you're figuring out, where do I go? How do I enter? What am I doing? I have to get a costume change. And it's, for a while, chaotic, but then it develops a rhythm. And it's really neat to see the actors take care of each other. Someone knows that this person needs the prop, so they pick it up in advance and they hand it to them. And it's so seamless, and everyone's taking care of each other. I love it. A funny thing that happened, also horrifying in the moment, was during the modern one, we were rehearsing, and it was the Fezziwigs party scene. And for that year, it was like a white elephant gift swap. So I bought gifts or repurposed things I found at home or in the basement of Artist Exchange or Theater 82 and wrapped them. Things like blankets and, Etch-a-Sketch or whatever. A nail polish set was one of them, and it broke. But I didn't realize what had happened. We had a pause because someone was like screaming or making noise, and I went over and I saw a girl holding out her hands with red all over it. And I tried to stay calm, thinking, I just killed a little actor, a little girl. It was nail polish, but I learned my lesson not to do that. And I'm always trying to be better about using plastic when I always want to use glassware. Lesson learned. What is the most important message in A Christmas Carol? I think the most important message in A Christmas Carol is that it's not too late and you can forgive. Forgiveness and reclamation. You can do good. You can change your course in life if you want to. And that's so beautiful. And relying on your community. But I think the important message is it's okay to ask for help, that you can change your course in life. And forgiveness is so important. Forgiveness to yourself and forgiveness for others. What do I like about working with Artist Exchange? In your opinion, what makes our production special or different? Artist Exchange is one of the best organizations I know and I have the privilege of working with. It's filled with people who care, people who are creative, talented, who love the craft of theater, who just love being good people. And I'm really proud to know so many special people from this organization. Tom and I, my husband, we like to say in every production that we work on that we have the most heart of all. Sorry about that. My computer kind of went dead on me. So I'm going to start over about talking about Artist Exchange. Artist Exchange is such a special organization, and I have had the pleasure of meeting some of the best people I know from Artist Exchange. They are so hopeful, they're creative, they love theater, they love making theater, and when you put people with that sort of enthusiasm in one room together to create something, how can you go wrong? Tom and I, my husband, Tom Chace, always say that it has the most heart. Theater really does have the most heart. And when we perform, we're going to perform like amateurs with the love of an amateur, but with the professionalism of the professionals. I botched that quote. I always do. But the point is that we have a lot of heart and we do it well. And I would be remiss to say that I love Artist Exchange because I met my husband there. I owe a lot to the organization. Anything else I want to add that wasn't mentioned? I'm going to go back and kind of re-answer the question about the visual elements in this, or special effects, number 4. Tom Chace was the musical director for every production that I worked on. Tom's music is always wonderful, and I don't just say this because he's my husband, but he really is so careful to make musical arrangements that speak to the scene, that are not just your traditional setting. The music was always a really important piece to it. For the first year, we had a lot of traditional Christmas carols, and that was important to me because that's what Victorian England would have been like. They would have had traditional Christmas carols. They wouldn't have had Rockin' Around the Christmas Tree. And the modern version, he made amazing arrangements that really just played to the scenes. Like each ghost had their own entrance theme that fit their personality, whether it was the bubbly ghost of Christmas Present and it was very high with the lights bouncing, or with the ghost of Christmas Past played by Lauren Anicelli, who was just devious and dark and kind of grungy. His music really always elevates everything, and we worked really hard to have special music that often were themes. For the last production I did in 2017, Silver and Gold was a recurring theme. It was kind of like Scrooge's theme between he and Fan and his sister. So in the beginning of the play, he was playing it on the piano, and then we heard it throughout. So I'm really proud with how that was. I suppose my final comments is Artist Exchange is an amazing organization, and while it may not have the spectacle that some organizations have when it comes to a Christmas carol, it has the most heart, and I've been so proud to be a part of it and can't wait for the next one.